What's up, selectors? It's Select Screen here. Sorry for the shocking imagery over here, but we're back with our WandaVision episode 4 review, and man, let me tell you, this episode was absolutely bananas. We're at linktr.ee/select screen. Also on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, as well as the Cash App at $5ELECT 5CREEN. Man, I am super excited to get into this episode, so let's not waste any more time. You're ready, I'm ready. Let's go. All right, guys. Wow. WandaVision episode 4. I'm telling you, man, just from the jump, I knew that episode 4 was going to be the bigger episode out of the first 4. You guys can kind of check in, I think, our review of episode 2 on our YouTube channel. Man, I knew episode 3 was going to kind of take a little bit of a dive, just because they've talked about this 3-episode arc within each arc. So episodes 1 and 2 were one episode. Episode 3 was kind of the conclusion of that first part. Then we're starting over again in episode 4, and I figured episode 4 we're going to get some answers and we're going to move forward, and that's exactly what happened. Let me give you a spoiler. Yes, spoiler warning here. All right, because if you haven't seen this episode, guys, go watch it. This episode is absolutely worth watching. And while you're there, make sure to like, share, and subscribe before you leave. Do that for me. All right. So here we go. Let's jump in and do a quick recap. From the jump, we start off with Monica Rambeau, and if you don't know, she was called Geraldine in the first 3 episodes, and this episode is really catching us up to what happened after, or like during Endgame, catching us up to what's been going on in WandaVision through the first 3 episodes. So we go over to Monica, and she rematerializes, or undusts, if you will, and that from the jump was crazy. I noticed something in that. If you listen, you hear Captain Marvel call her by her nickname that she gave her in Captain Marvel, the movie, and I believe it was like Captain Trouble or Captain Rambunctious or something like that. But I immediately knew, I was like, that's Carol. Carol's talking to her. And she materializes back into a hospital, and that hospital is the same hospital where she was when she got snapped. Now, just looking through my notes here, during snapped or blipped, I guess is probably the best way to put it. She kind of rushes in looking for someone, and there's just chaos. We've seen kind of what happens during the snap or during the blip. From the Avengers perspective, the birds came back, and Hawkeye got a phone call from his wife. It was like, oh, nice. It's chaos. We saw kind of in Spider-Man a little bit too, where kids were like in gym class, and then they just materialized back into gym class with other people. It was kind of nuts. So she ends up finding this doctor who was helping, who we find out being Monica's mom. What was her? I wrote down her name. Monica's mom was Captain Marvel's best friend in Captain Marvel. She went by the name Photon, which is one of the names that Monica will eventually go by, because Monica, spoiler, is a superhero herself. She was actually the first Captain Marvel, believe it or not. It's really crazy because we find out that Monica, I think her name is Maria. Monica's mom, Maria, or Photon, has cancer and actually died 5 years ago. or excuse me, 3 years. So Monica disappeared for 2. After that, of course, her mom died. Now, I think this is interesting. I'm just going to put this theory out there. I haven't heard this anywhere else. Is it because she was around Carol? Because Carol isn't, basically living radiation. Could Carol inadvertently kill their best friend? I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about that. Could that, was it hinted at? Or, people unfortunately get cancer, and it's a terrible thing. But man, being exposed to Carol like that as a human would not be great. It would not be great. So, moving back to the episode, Monica shows up at this new facility called Sword. I guess this is what Monica was doing before. And Sword is known as a couple of different things, but Sword is basically SHIELD, but outer space. And it stands for, in the MCU, Sentient Weapon Observation Response Division. And that is different from the comics, but I think it's really interesting because sentient weapons, we can definitely say Vision here and Wanda are sentient weapons. So that was kind of neat. We're introduced to a new character named Director Tyler Hayward. And this director guy seems a little fishy, just like all the directors do, right? But he worked, obviously, with Monica's mom beforehand. He's put in these protocols where they're working on, like, robots and stuff like that right now. So he says, hey, there's going to be this kind of uncomfortableness between us because, I've taken over, you were gone. Your mom was in place above me. Now she's not. It's weird. And this is roughly around like 3 weeks after Monica's, back to getting in the flow of things. He basically tries to take her off of the board and sends her to Westview. Now, as Monica's driving to her mission in Westview, we're seeing signs of Westview. Westview is actually in New Jersey. Shout out to my man Utre, the Unconventional, who is in New Jersey. So she's going there. All right, she gets there and she runs into, who does she run into but our cool, amazing FBI agent, Agent Wu. Agent Wu was from the Ant-Man and the Wasp movie. He was trying to do, he was basically in charge of watching Ant-Man, making sure that he stayed on house arrest the whole movie. Hilarious actor. I want to see more and more and more of him. He is just phenomenal. He starts out doing the magic trick that he tried to learn in Ant-Man. So all of this, again, is really connected this time, and I love that. He talks about how he got involved in the case through a witness protection thing for the federal government, and that's what brought him to Westview. And he says, he was on a missing persons case who basically, like, everyone's showing up, everyone's rematerializing, right? But he lost a person, and not only did he lose this person in witness protection, but what's really, really crazy is all the people that know this person, they lost their memory. Like, they don't know who this person is. So that's what brought him to Westview. Gets to Westview, and Westview it looks like no one's there. The cops are outside of it, the local police, and they said, we don't know what the issue is. There's no such thing as Westview. And they said, well, where are you guys from? Oh, we're from Eastview. So it seems like people around Westview have this short-term or selective amnesia, like they have no idea, and the people who know of people in Westview have this amnesia. Super crazy. Now, a big point that I don't hear a lot of people talking about online is they talked about how and Sword is set up around, obviously, in this bubble of radiation, and I thought that was really kind of downplayed on a lot of channels. There's a radiation coming off of this bubble, and not only is it Monica kind of says, okay, so what's the levels? And Jimmy's kind of talking about, hey, it's at this place right now. And I think that was a big hint that this radiation could and probably will expand. I'm thinking at the end of this, guys, that radiation goes around the world. And basically we're going to end up combining the origin of the X-Men and Inhumans. It's going to be this kind of mass explosion of energy. I think with the Inhumans, it's like a mist, but it's basically going to be this radiation that goes around the Earth and creates X-Men. That's just a theory, just an idea, but that was hinted at. So James E. Woo, Monica, they send in another drone, and the drone absolutely just disappears. Obviously, that drone was what Wanda saw when she saw the little toy helicopter. So things go through this bubble and they change into whatever sitcom that they're on. Very, very crazy. One thing we have here is Wu says it's not a missing persons case, it's a missing town. So that was interesting. Nobody's supposed to go in this place. Monica goes, of course, and touches the bubble, and gets sucked in. When she gets sucked in, she immediately changes into what we saw as Geraldine. That kind of shifts the perspective a little bit. It's crazy. We're not in a sitcom world, but we're reintroduced back to Darcy from the Thor movies. And again, she's kind of interacting with that director who just seems super sketch. Darcy says, she's going to run some scans, a lot of technical mumbo jumbo, and she finds out that there's a TV signal, embedded in basically the waves that are going around. It has to do a little bit with the Big Bang. I'm not going to get into all that, but basically she's such a funny line. And I love Darcy's character because they've moved her away from Jane and all those other people in Thor and made her her own doctor. And she says, I need a TV, but like not flat. She needs an old school TV. She gets the TV and she's able to watch, and she's watching episodes 1 through 3 of WandaVision. This is kind of the point where Wu is also trying to talk to Wanda through that weird radio. But what I noticed is, and it's very obvious, anytime there's something that's weird that goes on, through Darcy's perception of the show, it never shows. So I think Wanda knows that she's broadcasting this. But when there's something weird that goes on, when we'll talk about the beekeeper that we saw, or when Dottie crushes the glass and she's bleeding and it's in color, all of that is skipped. Darcy doesn't get to see that. It just kind of jumps like an old TV would. Again, Darcy points out that Vision was dead, not blipped. He was killed. And so because of that, we're going to eventually get this picture. They send in this other agent, and he is in a hazmat suit, and that's who becomes the beekeeper. I forget what his name was, but when he goes through kind of the bubble, he has like a tether to him. He goes in, hazmat suit, he crosses into the bubble. The tether turns into an old school jump rope, and he, of course, transforms into a beekeeper. This is Wanda transforming anything that enters into the bubble into what she wants. We also get to see, and I'm going to fast forward just a little bit before we get into... Actually, we'll kind of go in order here. We go back to Monica, or Geraldine, and it kind of goes back to the point after having the babies, She had mentioned Ultron, and we get to kind of see more of what happened there. And, again, we got the head tilt of Doom from Wanda, and she literally throws Monica through like 3 buildings, a fence, and out of the bubble. And when she goes out of the bubble, she's still dressed in her Geraldine clothes. So that again tells me what happens inside the bubble is a real thing. It's not just an illusion. So it gets transformed when it gets out, when someone goes in, not transformed when something goes out. So those are some of the rules that we're getting here. Vision comes into the room like he did in the previous episode, except this time we get this guy right here. She looks up, and probably the biggest jump scare I think in Marvel history. We get this look at Dead Vision, and honestly, he wasn't that scary when the Infinity Stone was pulled from his head. It was so sad and emotional in Infinity War, but it wasn't scary. This was scary. It's almost a jump cut to this face. It's just boom, there's Dead Vision, and I'm telling you, it for me, I was like, oh, it was scary. That was scary. She kind of like looks away, and you can kind of tell she's like, let me redo this. My theory in question here is, are all the Westview people dead? Remember in the previous episode, Herb was saying to Vision, hey, I think everybody's dead. I think everyone in Westview, it's a zombie thing. I think this is actually a zombie thing. Wanda is in there basically reanimating corpses. It's weird. I don't know. That's creepy to me, but I think that's what's going on. Moving on, Wanda and Vision are happy again. Everything's back to the color. We're kind of caught up, for the most part, from the outside looking in. And we cut back to Monica. And Monica verifies my theory. She says it's all Wanda. It's this Westview is happening because Wanda's willing to make Westview happen. Is she still being controlled? She probably is. I think it would be great if it's Dormammu that's controlling her, not Mephisto, not some of these other people. Even though we keep getting the devil's in the details, and he's around and blah 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 blah. One other thing to point out is they put up this crazy board of what's going on, and it seems like that's in all of these conspiracy movies, right? The web of what's going on. And I believe Wu actually puts up scrolls on the board. Is it scrolls? How does he know about scrolls? That's pretty interesting to me. Also, they kind of go through the characters that are on the show and identify who they are in Westview. But there are certain characters missing, and that's really interesting. We still don't know who Ags, I call her Ags, who she is. They didn't identify her, and they didn't identify her husband. So obviously the husband is the person who I think is Dormammu. It's interesting. There's a lot more questions, but we got some answers in episode 4. My grade for this, and I'm going to let you guys go. I know we're running on 20 minutes here. Excuse me. This episode was A+. It had everything. It had laughs. It had some scary stuff. It had answers. It had more questions. This was amazing. These episodes where you get questions and get answers, and that gives more questions. Awesome. This was honestly one of the best. I mean, you got to take this episode out and put it up with the movies. It was phenomenal. very well acted again. The actress who plays Monica is, I mean, if they decide to give her her own show, or man, let her take over the mantle of Captain Marvel. I know that's not very popular. I didn't love Captain Marvel, but this show is making me like Captain Marvel, the movie, even more. I didn't hate the movie. I just thought it was okay. This is making Captain Marvel more fleshed out like it needed to be. I really, really enjoyed it. Like I said, A+ for me on this episode. I can't wait till next week. Again, check out, guys, our live reaction. You can watch along, put me up there with you, watch the episode. You can kind of see me react to it at the same time. Also, I want to announce that we are going to do, for I believe 5 other people, if you leave a comment, let me know again some of the questions that you have with WandaVision. Did you like the episode? And also the question we asked before. But we're going to do this thing where we watch along together next week for 5 amazing selectors. So check that out. That will be, for me, Friday morning at 1:30 Mountain Standard Time. But would love to do that. We'll do the first 5 commenters. We'll send out a code to do that shortly before we go live. Make sure to go and watch that video. Guys, we are at linktr.ee/select screen. We're on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and the Cash app. I hope you guys had an awesome day today and you enjoyed the review. Be kind to one another. Make sure to choose your destiny. My name's Select Screen, and I'm out.